All right, friends, welcome. We are starting in 7 minutes. I'm your host, Michael D. Butler, global book publisher, Bangkok, Thailand. And this is the Storytelling Masterclass. Master the 4 types of storytelling to increase your influence, impact, and income. We're going to get started in exactly 5 minutes. So grab a beverage wherever you are in the world, grab an ink pen, grab a notebook, whatever you need, and share this on your page, beyondwebinar.com. And we're going to do about a 50-minute deep dive into becoming a better storyteller to increase your influence, impact, and income. I'm your host, Michael D. Butler, and we are here. Here's the behind the scenes in Bangkok as people travel to work. I'm on the front porch of my apartment, and I may give you a street shot scene here in a minute as people are headed to work here in the busy, bustling city of Bangkok, Thailand. If you're watching the replay, you can fast forward to exactly 5 minutes from now, and the content will begin. So never mind me. I'm the producer. I'm behind the scenes loading a video and a PowerPoint, and we'll see you soon. BeyondWebinar.com. And you are coming to the Storytelling Masterclass. Where you can master the 4 types of storytelling to increase impact, influence, and income. We are starting at the top of the hour. Glad you're here. Grab a beverage. Join us. The reason I say top of hour is it's 7 a.m. here in Bangkok. Not sure what time it is where you are. Outstanding. I forgot to grab my water. I could always take you into 7-Eleven and grab it, but I think I'll be fine. Always helpful when you have water. .1040impact.org. I'm here in the heart of the 1040 window, Bangkok, Thailand. There's 70 million people in Thailand. Will you do something for me? I'm looking for prayer partners. I need you to pray for Christians in the 1040 window. The 1040 window is the greatest area of unreached people groups in the world. Not only that, these 3 billion people, they make an average of only $1 per day. Thank you for being a prayer partner in the 1040 window at 1040impact.org. Let me know if you see my changing lives in New York and NASDAQ and beyond. Michael D. Butler, global book publisher. We're ending human trafficking at 1040impact.org. I don't celebrate birthdays. I just don't celebrate birthdays. And I don't remember exactly why I quit celebrating birthdays. Maybe it was because on my 16th birthday, my parents happened to be both out of town on business trips. I was getting my driver's license. Growing up on the farm in Oklahoma, my brother checked me out of school in third hour and took me to the DMV. Now, I'd studied hard for that test. I wanted to pass it. I wanted my freedom. And I was so proud. I came out and I had my picture, weighing 136 pounds, sophomore. Right there, I got my ticket to freedom. So he takes me to the Pizza Hut, and we're eating pizza, and we're celebrating. And I get to drive my car back to the school, and I get to drive my car home that day. We had planned it that way. Maybe the reason I don't celebrate birthdays is when I turned 40, Dad calls me the day before my birthday and says, "Son, let's celebrate your birthday tomorrow." And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great. I've got a lot to celebrate. Let's do it." He said, "Tomorrow at your favorite restaurant, 12 noon. I said, "You bet. I'll see you there." Hang up the phone. The next morning,
He shows up at the restaurant at 11:50. Dad was always early. He grew up on the dairy farm, and I was always right on time. So 12 o'clock came. I didn't show up. 12:05 comes. He's a little worried. He's texting and calling. It goes straight to voicemail. 12:15, he's like, what's going on? At 12:25, he calls the hospital. Where's my son? 12:45, he drives home to tell my mom, Michael didn't show up. Where was I? Was I in the hospital? No. I was in jail. Because on the eve of my 40th birthday, I went to the bar alone to drink, got into a bar fight, and spent the night of my 40th birthday in jail. What was it about this self-sabotage that the pain was so great that a root of bitterness was growing in my heart at a subterranean level, affecting everything in my life and everyone that I touched in a negative way? I couldn't figure it out. This year, May 10th, I was all ready to celebrate my birthday. Very excited. Friends were coming over at 2 p.m. We had the whole thing planned out. I'll never forget when I was 7 years old, I told my dad, I said, Dad, I'm going to live to be 120. And I think in my subconscious mind, I knew I needed that much time to redeem the root of bitterness and create what my therapist called a root of blessing. My therapist said there's two things you need to do to reverse the curse of bitterness and create blessing in your family and to bring it back. And you need to forgive yourself and you need to celebrate. Well, I was good at forgiving myself because I had screwed up a lot and I forgave a lot. And she said, celebrate yourself, come on. And that was my theme song. And I sat there in jail and said, I'm going to run a marathon this year. And Michael, Matthew, Joshua, and Jeremiah, my 4 sons, they stepped out of the spectator area in the last 3 miles. They ran with me in 2008 and crossed that finish line with me. And as I told my sons, I said, sons, I am celebrating your birthday, but guess what? Next year, I'm celebrating my birthday on May the 10th, and all of you are invited. Celebrate with me. Changing lives in New York and NASDAQ and beyond. Michael D. Butler, Global Book Publisher. We're ending human trafficking at 1040impact.org.
All right. I'm your host, Michael D. Butler. I am glad you're here. Welcome to the Masterclass, Storytelling Masterclass, where I am going to do a deep dive with you in the next 50 minutes to give you the 4 types of storytelling to increase and impact your influence and your income and your impact. Hey, let me know where you're watching from. Pop it into the chat. If you're watching in the USA, if you're watching in Asia, if you're watching in Europe, wherever you're watching in the world. And then also let me know what platform you're watching on, because we stream this to Facebook, to Twitter, to YouTube, to Instagram, and we like to know where you're watching from. So over the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you, as a global book publisher, we've been working with people's stories now for 7 years. We've published 847 titles by authors in 69 nations. We've ghostwritten nearly 200 books, and actually I think it's over 200 books now, maybe 220. The number changes all the time because you've got new people coming in all the time. And so I am coming at you as a story expert, as somebody whose life has been changed by the power of story. And if you're sitting there saying, hey, I really know that I'm called to share a message. I know that I'm called to impact the world with my story, but it seems like nobody's listening, then this webinar is for you. So I want you to stop what you're doing, turn off your phone, turn off the notifications. It's good to see you, Pat, from Lexington, Kentucky. So many here. It's good to see you, James. How are you, James? And from Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's so great to see. Pop in the chat. Let me know where you're watching from. Turn off your notifications. Grab a pen. Grab a beverage over the next 45 minutes. I want to share with you how to change the world by becoming a better storyteller. But, a little bit about me, because I'm a kid that grew up on the farm, and I stuttered from the age of 5 to 11. I mean, I did okay with friends and family. I did okay with friends and family, but when it came to sharing my story, when it came to going to school, when it came to getting public and meeting new people, I crashed. I did not do good. I did not do well. And I can remember being 11 years old and giving my first public speech. Let me know, give me your feedback if you can see my screen, because I want to be able to share my screen with you. And so somebody just let me know if you can share my screen. I want to be sure that you can see my screen, and let me share it with you, because as an 11-year-old kid, you're conscious about what people think. You're conscious about, impressing people. You're conscious about your voice being heard. And as an 11-year-old kid, I was just a nerd kid growing up on the farm with my library card maxed out. I would max out my library card, and then I would steal my brother's library card so I could max out his library card at 10 books. So I always had 20 books that I'm reading. And a librarian could see my struggle in life. And as an 11-year-old kid, she gave me a book written by an 11-year-old boy. And I got to tell you, I don't know what the chances of that are, but that changed my life. And I'll never be the same. Now, I don't remember this kid's name that was on the front of the book. I don't remember the title of the book even. I just remember there was a sailboat on the front of the book. And so I grabbed this sailboat, and I got to tell you, when I get to heaven, I'm going to look this kid up, and I'm going to thank this kid for changing my life. Because growing on that farm in Oklahoma, as I'm reading his book, I'm realizing that nothing's impossible. You can literally do anything you want to do. And this is me a few months later at graduation in 6th grade, giving a speech to 300 of my classmates at Ewing Hossel Junior High. I don't even remember who snapped this photo. I just remember giving this speech, getting an applause, and you know what? I didn't stutter. For once, this was the first time that I did not stutter. And let me hit the present button because I want to share with you the picture. I've actually got the photo of it. I don't know who snapped the photo. And I found this photo at my mom's recently. And I asked my mom, I said, Mom, did you snap this photo? She doesn't remember snapping it. I said, did one of my teachers snap this photo? We really don't know where it came from. It had to be a Kodak 126 or a Kodak 110 back then, because back then that's what was popular. That's what everybody had. And as I share my screen with you here today, you can see this little boy, this 11-year-old boy. This was a turning point in my life. And this was a turning point because this changed my mindset. It shifted my mindset. And today, over the next 35, 40 minutes, I want to shift some of your thinking. I want to shift some of your mindsets with the 4 types of storytelling. And maybe you've never heard this before, but I'm going to give this to you today. It's going to impact your world in a mighty way, in a powerful way, because you know what? For those of you that stick around to the end, I'm going to give all of you an opportunity to get the replay, but then also to offer you something of value, to put something into your hand that is really going to help define what your core life message is and how you can monetize your life story while impacting other people in a positive way. Dr. Forbes Riley says Michael D. Butler's Pure Magic. These are some of the clients and mentors we've been blessed by and been fortunate enough to work with, from John Maxwell to Brian Tracy to Forbes Riley to Les Brown to Dr. Oz to Brian Kilmeade to Tony Robbins to America's guru there and trainer. You know her. But you know what? As I've traveled the world and been to 38 countries and spoken in 23 of those countries and worked with people like Chubby Checker and met people like the man himself, Don't Stop Believing, who wrote Journey's song, Don't Stop Believing, Jonathan Cain, it really does come down to the power of the story. You know, if you're a business owner, if you're a CEO, if you're a startup, if you're an entrepreneur, and you really want to make an impact, you don't focus on product, benefits, and features. You want to focus on the story. The story is so much bigger than the product. People don't buy because of a great product. They buy because of a great story, because that story will help them know, like, and trust you. And so, getting some good comments here, and I am grateful for that. All right, Dave. Hey, Dave, can you see my screen? Good to see you, Dave, from Toronto. We got Canada in the house, eh? There we go. There is Coach Dave up in Toronto. And Pat, so proud of all of you guys. Got your books coming out. You've been speaking. Um, Pat's been ministering the word, teaching the word, inspiring people with the word of God. So it's great to have Canada here. Just let me know. And I want to know in the chat, pop into the chat with me. Why do you want to be a better storyteller? Michael Butler coming at you from Bangkok, Thailand. And I'm going to give you the 4 types of storytelling. But I want to know why you, as an author, why you as a speaker, why you as a retiree or a business owner, why do you want to be a better storyteller? Is it to influence more lives, impact more people? Maybe it's to get on more podcasts. Maybe it's just to enrich your personal life relationships, to enrich your relationship with your family, your spouse, your children, your business owners and your friends and your business partners and your friends. You know, if you were a better storyteller, and if you look at the Fortune 500 companies, and the companies that really make an impact around the world that are billion-dollar companies, they all have a unique brand story. Now, granted, they all have widgets. They all make things. They all have products. They might be a product company, but they want to sell you on the idea that they have a bigger mission. They want to sell you on the idea and the story that they do something worthwhile and something bigger than just a product or a widget. And that's how I am with the publishing company. That's one reason we've been so successful, is we're not just a widget company. We are a company that sells dreams. We're a company that puts authors on stages. We're a company that gets people empowered to speak to the media and to podcast. And so Dave wants to move hearts to action. There you go. That's positive. Pat wants to spread the good news to all who will listen and want a richer life. Awesome. These are great. So some good things here from Toronto, from Lexington, Kentucky, from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're all glad. These are all great things. So appreciate everybody watching and weighing in wherever you're watching. Maybe you're watching the replay. This goes about 50 minutes. You can fast forward to the very end to see the replay link and to sign up for next week's webinar. I've got a special offer for you where I'm offering you a free webinar to spend another hour with you and do a deeper dive into the 4 types of storytelling, because I think what I'm going to share with you today is going to be revolutionary. I've not heard anybody speak about it. And as a speaker, as a public speaker that's given 3,000 paid talks in the faith community, the nonprofit community, the corporate community, and the entrepreneurial community over the last 35 years, I've never heard anybody talk about these 4 types of storytelling. And what I'm going to give you will help you strike up a conversation with an individual at an airport from any country in the world, but also on stage speaking to thousands. It works in small groups, large groups, and it will help you make a bigger, better impact with your life. So if you look at these top countries, or these top companies that have brand stories, they are passionate about telling you their story, and the product is number 3 or 4 on the list of things that they do. They give you the why. So I want to ask you the question, why do you want to become a better storyteller? Because we can answer this question, why do you want to be a better storyteller? As I'm asking you this at 7:15 in Bangkok, Thailand, and wherever you're watching in the world, think about, why do you want to be a better storyteller? For me, as this kid that stuttered at 11, I just wanted to be able to talk without stuttering. That was my thing. I mean, forget storytelling. I just wanted to be able to order my lunch. I just wanted to be able to, ask a friend to come home and play with me, on the weekend, play some baseball. That's what I was wanting to get to. So storytelling is a greater level of living. It's a greater level of participation in life. And so as we get into these 4 types of storytelling, it's going to impact you in a powerful way. So how can I become a better storyteller? First of all, identify why you want to become a better storyteller. As I look at the greatest storytellers of all time, and you realize the greatest communicator who ever lived, who created the largest movement that's still impacting planet Earth with 8 billion people and 2 billion people in his community, in his movement, I'm speaking of, you guessed it, none other than Jesus Christ, the great storyteller, the great master communicator, who 90% of his communication was telling stories and asking questions. Now, you would think, as the greatest communicator that created the greatest movement ever, that continues to this day, 2,000 years after he's gone from the earth, would still continue to give us inspiration today. And absolutely true. We want to become master storytellers. In fact, the Apostle Paul, who killed and murdered Christians and locked Christians in jail, 33% of the time that he was speaking to individual groups or to large stages, he was telling his personal story. So if you want to become a great communicator, if you want to become a great storyteller, you want to be able to tell a powerful story. As a business entrepreneur, CEO, startup founder, as a member of a network marketing company, as a member of a church community trying to persuade people to forsake hell and receive Jesus and go to heaven, it's not just about talking about products and benefits and features of the product. It's about telling your why story. Your why story. What is your why story? Why do you do what you do? And the thing that makes you stand apart in any industry, be it insurance, be it real estate, be it financial industry, whatever industry it is in, those are all difficult industries to gain new prospects and get new customers. Even as an author, selling books to somebody you don't know or selling books to somebody you know is very difficult if you don't have a powerful origin story. And so when you look at these companies like the Fortune 500s, they have a powerful origin story where they are telling their why. And it comes down to, number one, your stories, your personal stories. So the 4 types of storytelling are, number one, your stories. These are stories about yourself. I told you the story about me stuttering. I'm going to tell you the story about me running the marathon for the first time because it's 39 and a half years of age. I'm looking at my bucket list. I just moved and I'm going through some boxes and I see this journal where I had on my bucket list the desire to run a marathon by the age of 40. So I go to Google. I'm like, okay, I can do that. At this time, I'm a couch potato. I am not in shape. I'm not going to the gym. I'm overweight. I'm not running any. And so the next morning I put on my running shoes. I go out in front of my house and I run 2 blocks and I'm out of breath. I can't breathe. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I must just be having a bad day. So the next day I put on my running shoes and I run 2 blocks and a mailbox and I about pass out. And I'm thinking, this is not good. You need a year to train for a marathon. You need a year to be ready for a marathon. And so I go in the next day and I Google running shoes and I Google running group. Running groups actually pops up as an ad. Isn't that amazing how Google works? And so I joined a running group that day and I bought new running shoes. And 6 months later, my 4 sons are crossing the finish line with me. They stepped out of the spectator area and the last 3 miles they run with me. They were 14, 12, 10, and 8. Michael, Matthew, Joshua, and Jeremiah. My mom and dad, my sons cheering me on at the finish line there. A goal accomplished because I had a group of people around me. But I also that day went and put on my social media, 6 months from now, I will run and complete the Route 66 marathon in a sub 5-hour time, in less than 5 hours. So that was my story. I set a goal. I did it. Was it painful? Yes. But it was my story. And I was doing this story to create momentum in my life because I thought, only 15% of Americans ever run a marathon. So if I can run this marathon, there's other things that I can do. So I've since gone on to run 2 ultra marathons. Over one was 28 miles and one was 40 miles. Anything over a marathon is an ultra. But it's a busy and a crowded world. If you're going to tell your story and you're going to get noticed online, if you're going to sell a book, sell a coaching program, gain a new client, you got to realize that the average attention span of humans is just 8 seconds. That's right. The average attention span of humans is just 8 seconds. So we've got to be able, and the goldfish has a 7. Let me say that right. Goldfish have a longer attention span than we humans do. And so as I share my screen here, go into presenter mode, share my screen, boom, share the entire screen, share. There it is. I think I am now sharing the screen with you. Beautiful. So the average attention span of humans is 8 seconds, 1 second less than that of a goldfish. So if you want to grab people's attention online or on a stage or on a podcast, you got to be able to hook them with your story and hook them quickly. So I want to ask you this today. It's really sharpen your axe. And Abe Lincoln said, if I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I'd spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. And I got to say, I am going to sharpen your axe right now because I want to ask you, what is your core life message? Over your lifetime, you have millions of memories from childhood to your teen years, to your college and early adult years, to your plateau years, to your giving back years, your retirement years, your paying it forward years, whatever you want to call it. You have millions and millions of memories, and not all of these are stories that you want to tell. We don't want to become this never-ending dialogue of human memoir because people don't have the bandwidth to absorb all those kinds of stories. But I want to ask you, what is your core life message? Out of these millions of messages, there's probably 1,000 of these stories you could share over the course of your lifetime, like me having the stuttering problem and the librarian giving me a book written by an 11-year-old, how that changed my life, but also other stories that happen on a daily basis. And there's probably 12 really good stories that we could come up with in a storytelling inventory that would go under the category of your stories. These are your stories where if you were asked to take a stage, if you were asked to step on stage at a church or at a business meeting or at a network marketing company or at somebody's funeral or just any situation, maybe a reunion, a class reunion where you get on the stage, what is your core life message and what story are you going to drive home? Because we've all fallen asleep in church or in a lecture or in a workshop where we were being bored to death with facts, but it's the person that can tell a powerful story that will keep us awake. And it's the CEO, the business owner, and the author that tells a powerful story that will land the new client, win the new contract, sell the coaching program, sell the book, sell the next appointment, get the gig, however you want to say it, land the speaking gig over anybody else in the room that's competing for that contract because you were a better storyteller. It's not having all the facts straight, but it is being able to tell a better story. Now, I noticed this during the pandemic because during the pandemic, up to that time, we had helped about, I think 550 book titles be published. And now we're at 847 book titles published globally, authors in 69 nations, and about 200 some ghostwritten. So if you could see my screen, you would see pictures, over 100 people, dozens and dozens of people on these webinars I was hosting every Friday, some great people here. And I helped hundreds of people write their book during the pandemic. I would go live every Friday and I taught a course called Write Your Book in 60 Days. Some of you remember that. I since narrowed that down to write your book in 1 hour because I realized the structural, functional aspects of writing your book could be done with a client. I was doing with a client one-on-one on Zoom in literally an hour where we would figure out who their audience is, who their reader is, what the title and subtitle should be, creating a table of contents, and then writing a marketing strategy in 1 hour. And then it was a matter of them just to go write the book. Now, that was before AI, and this was just me as a human sharing the things that we had done with 450 other authors and doing this with hundreds of authors during the pandemic, 58 of whom went on to publish a book with us. Some of them went on to self-publish, but they went ahead and got their book and their story out to the world. Now, I want you to realize when it comes to powerful storytelling, if you're an author, if you're a speaker, 90% of your readers and 90% of the people that are going to take action on your coaching program, on your sales pitch, on what it is you're offering them are going to be women. 90% of the readers are women. 90% of the buyers are women. 90% of the people that are going to take action are going to be women. So when you look at your core life story, you're going to have a core life story that changes and depending on who you're speaking to and depending on what decade you're living in. Because, for a decade and a half, my core life story was everyone should write a book. And everyone should write a book. I believe that everyone should run a marathon and everyone should write a book. Only 15% of America is ever going to run a marathon, and only 15% of America is ever going to publish a book. But there is a personal journey, a personal growth that happens that will not happen until you write that book. Because 90% of what you journal about, you will never publish, it will never see the light of day. It's for your healing purpose. But you can't get to the point where you can bring a marketable book to the world until you've done the work underground, under the dirt. I'll tell you the story next week at the same time. Next week, I'll tell you about shoveling manure and why planting a garden and writing a book are like shoveling horse manure. And it was an unforgettable day on a Saturday. I was ready to play with my friends. And Friday night, Dad says, tomorrow, you and your brother Kenny, my brother Kenny was 10, I was 8. He said, we are shoveling horse manure for the garden tomorrow. And I said, what? I've got plans with my friends. And Dad said, not tomorrow, you don't. You're mine tomorrow. You're working for me. We're shoveling 6 truckloads of horse manure for the garden. And I didn't quite understand how shoveling horse manure could be like writing your book, could be like telling your story. But in fact, it is. So the number one type of storytelling is telling your own story. But telling your own story with redemptive value. So it's not just a memoir, but it actually has a redemptive arc that can transform lives. Now, for example, one of my stories right now, my main story, is discipling believers in the 1040 window. This is our new magazine. It's called 1040 Impact. Many of you know I run a nonprofit. In fact, if you want a copy of this magazine, just pop into the chat your address, private, put your in the private message, and I'll send you a copy of this magazine out next week to show up in your mailbox so you can pray for us and see everything we're doing in the 1040 world, here in the 1040 window to reach people. And so this is consistent with my core life message. One of my original core life messages when I was 11 that I learned from the 11-year-old kid when I read the book was, life is an adventure. Before that, my core life message was, life is frustrating. People laugh at you and make fun of you when you stutter and you try to talk. And this kid changed my paradigm from life is frustrating and life is difficult to life is fun. Life is an adventure. Life is meant to travel. Life is meant to meet new people and be impacted by them and impact them. And I can remember when I read his book there on the farm in Oklahoma where I grew up, that I would read his book on the farm and I would look up at the planes flying over. And God gave me this dream that one day I would be flying in those planes all over the world, speaking to thousands of people. And you know what? That came to pass. That story that I began to tell myself came to pass. And now I'm in Thailand seeing that come to pass. And so I want to show you a kid, for example, that I met yesterday. When I say a kid, he's 18. I walk into this pizzeria right near my apartment over here. In fact, if you stick around to the end, I'll give you a tour. And I also wanted to ask, if you know what this fruit is, pop it into the chat. If you are fortunate enough to know what this fruit is, pop it into the chat. It is from Southeast Asia. And just I want to see if anybody knows what this fruit is. And I'll give you a little hint. It's called the Queen of Fruits. And this is one of my favorite fruits. And not to be confused with the King of Fruits, which is the durian, which is much bigger and smells nasty. It tastes pretty good. But this is called the Queen of Fruits. And I buy this every day at my local market. And I'm going to pop it open for you because there's a lot of healing properties in the rind of this fruit. It's so delicious inside. What you see inside there. I didn't give you a good look at that one. I'll give you a good look at the next one. See that? So delicious. There's a seed right in the middle. But what would I describe it like? It's got the texture and the consistency of a peach. All the medicinal properties are in the rind, called the pericarp. You can actually boil this. It's a powerful anti-inflammatory. Oh, there's another piece in here. Let me get that out. Delicious. So if you guessed mangosteen, sorry, I'm on camera. If you guessed mangosteen, you were right. Let me know if you've had a mangosteen before. It's so delicious. Wow. So the reason I bring that up, I want to show you this kid, this 18-year-old kid from Burma called Myanmar now, formerly Burma. I walked into the pizzeria yesterday about 4 o'clock, and I bump into this kid. And it's funny because all over the world, I eat kosher, and so I'm always looking for non-pork food. I'm looking for Jewish food that is not pork and not seafood. And so this kid walks in at the exact same time. We're the only ones in the pizzeria. His name's William. And he says, hey, I'm Muslim. I don't eat pork. And I said, hey, William, great to meet you. And immediately I think he's one of my prospects, right? He's in the 1040 window. He's Muslim, and he's under the age of 50. So did you know 85% of the people that receive Jesus do so by the age of 18? So here's William. He's attending college in Singapore, and he's in my pizzeria telling me he's Muslim. So I chat with him. He ends up getting the salmon pizza, which is what I got yesterday. I said, chicken or salmon, you're pretty safe. I said, you could do veggies. He says, no, I got to have some meat. I said, I hear you. That's the same with me. I got to have some meat. So he's 18 years old. I get to talk to this guy. And then I realize he's living right next door to my apartment in the condo next door. He's here on vacation till the end of the month. And he's from Myanmar, formerly Burma. And he's an 18-year-old kid who's Muslim who lost his 52-year-old father during COVID. And so we conversed there. We talked for a little while. He was waiting for his pizza to get it to go. And we had a nice conversation. We connect up on Instagram. And I asked him about Jesus. I asked him about Christianity. Had he ever heard the gospel? And we had a nice conversation. And we're going to meet up again. You know, and so that was an opportunity where somebody came into my life. I had an opportunity to ask them questions, tell a story, and then ask for a chance to meet with them again. So number one is the stories you tell. The number two type story in 4 types of storytelling is other people's stories. Now, maybe you're new in business, or maybe you're just young in life and you don't have a lot of stories yet. I can remember I gave my first public speech when I was 15 years old. And when you're 15, you don't have a lot of life experiences. Even though I had the 11-year-old story I could have told, it didn't really dawn on me how impactful that was until years later as I look back from a different perspective of how that moment became a turning point in my life. So it's very powerful to use other people's stories. And when I say other people's stories, you can use stories of people from pop culture. You can use stories of people in the news. You can use stories of people from history. You can use stories of contemporary people. Since I did a lot of my public speaking in churches and as an ordained minister, I would use a lot of stories from the Bible because the Bible is great historical literature with some compelling and some of the best, most compelling stories to tell. And so that's another thing. There's nothing wrong with telling other people's stories. And until you have enough of your own stories, it's very impactful and powerful to tell other people's stories. So I recommend you grab an arsenal of stories that you can tell of professional athletes, of war heroes, of people that have lost limbs, people that have overcome much, people that have succeeded in life after great failure, men and women who have overcome great struggle or been a part of a great movement. Tell their stories, specifically read their autobiographies, and go hear them speak. You can watch so many TED Talks online. You can watch so many YouTube videos about behind the scenes. I mean, even my stories, a lot of my stories that I don't share from stage, you'll see on my weekly webinars. And I am purposing to start doing again my weekly webinars because I got so much positive feedback last year and all through the pandemic. And I did these up until November of last year. And when I sold my house in San Antonio and moved, it was more difficult traveling the world to be consistent with a set time every week. But I would love your feedback because there's some street noise here. And the thing is, at 7 a.m. in Bangkok, you don't have the office space open. My office upstairs does not get great internet for live stream. It does great for email and social media, but not for a live stream. So coming out here on the patio, let me know. How is the noise? Is it too bad? Should I find another place? I certainly could search around. So when it comes to the 4 types of storytelling to increase impact, influence, and income, number 1, tell your stories powerfully. And these are going to be, we'll talk about the storytelling inventory here in a little bit. And I'll tell you how I came up with 12 stories that would radically increase my influence, my impact, and my income in a pool in Acapulco 2 years ago, and how that came into being with one of my mentors and coaches. And I was there with the group at an event called Impact, Influence, and Income. And he went through the storytelling inventory in his pool. And we literally journaled the top 100 stories that we could tell from our life to impact other people. And then we highlighted the 12 and got really laser focused on. And that's where I came up with my 11-year-old kid book story that the librarian gave me. That's where I came up with my running the marathon story. That's where I came up with the story I'm going to tell you next week about the manure story, and so many other stories that I've been able to effectively tell to get me on the stages I want, to get me the media interviews I wanted. Because at the end of the day, we have 7 seconds to make an impact in somebody's life. And if we don't hook them with a story, and the third type, then it's not going to happen. And then the third type of storytelling is fiction stories. Now, I never gave this much credence because I didn't read that much fiction as a kid, even from childhood through my college years and my adult years. I've been a nonfiction guy, reading self-help books, reading business books, reading books on spirituality and faith and the biblical books. I did not read much fiction, with the exception of Little House on the Prairie and the Hardy Boys, and some of those types of books that most middle schoolers and junior high schoolers read. I didn't do a lot of fiction. I'd rather watch the movie than to read the book. But you know what? It's a very, very powerful thing to do. I never forget Jeff Williams, my football coach that was also my history teacher in 9th grade. And I never understood, in these small towns in Oklahoma, you would have a great coach. When they had to put him in a teaching position, they would give him the history class, and they wouldn't always teach history. But he was great at telling stories, and he was so good at telling stories, you didn't know if he was telling you the truth or telling you a story of fiction. And so he would literally spend an entire hour of class, which we didn't mind as students because we could veg out and we weren't being tested on this. And he would tell us some war hero story about how he fought in Vietnam and all the heroic things he did. And you're sitting on the edge of your seat believing him. And then the bell rings and Coach Williams says, when we asked him, he's like, no, that didn't really happen. I just made it up. Most of it he made up as his point. He's just reading the audience and coming up with these zingers. So I learned a lot about the power of telling a fiction story when I was a children's youth minister back in my ministry days, because I would have a room full of 100 children on Sunday morning, a room full of 100 teenagers on Sunday night, and a room full of 200 adults on Wednesday night. And I had to learn how to become a good storyteller. And so when it comes to fiction stories, I think one of the best ways to tell a story is to say, I knew this guy, we'll call him Bill. And then you go into your story. Because when you're in an industry that's highly regulated, like insurance or finance or mortgage or investment, or taking a company public, there's all kinds of rules and regulations, not only in the U.S. with the Securities and Exchange Commission, but also in other countries with different markets and whatever legal restrictions you have on you. It's so much easier to tell a fiction story. And that's the reason why a lot of the books we ghostwrite for people are fiction stories because they don't have to go through compliance. But when I'm on stage, I'm able to tell the story that I want to get across. And I tell people it may be a fiction story. There's nothing wrong with telling a fiction story, or even if I'm writing a book of nonfiction, to say, hey, I see a lot of people like this, and I changed this person's name and modified their story a little bit to fit the setting. But, her name was Sue, and she came to me a few years ago, and here was Sue's story. There's nothing wrong with telling that if that is your target market, and that's a likely scenario to happen in your industry. There's nothing wrong with that. Once again, you can create your own fiction story, or you can steal somebody else's fiction story. I think the master fiction storytellers are moms and dads with kids at bedtimes. My dad was great at this. You come up with the story, and then there's always a sequel. There's always a series. There's always more. And the number 4 and final type of storytelling, which I think is the most powerful and most effective, and I've never heard anyone talk about this, is the stories we tell ourselves. These are the most powerful stories, or the stories we tell ourselves. I did sales for a large portion of my adult life because I love the commission-based opportunity where there's no glass ceiling and the income earning potential is unlimited. Now, you also don't have a guaranteed base salary or guaranteed income. So that was always interesting to tell the wife you got a new job. And says, oh, great, how much is the income? And you say $0, but unlimited potential. I could make $1 million US a year, or I could make 0 depending on how bad I want it, how much I want to work. So she was never always excited about those kinds of opportunities, but those kind of opportunities always excited me about the potential. And so I'll never forget my first sales job was a door-to-door sales job, and we were selling business promotions with a new dry cleaners or a new business that had gone into town, like an oil change business or something like that. And we go knock doors in the neighborhood and knock on the door and say, hey, I'm Michael Butler with White Way Cleaners. I'm sure you've seen our vans in the area. Are you the homeowner? And getting those doors slammed in your face again and again and again. And I love the challenge of that. I love the adrenaline rush of that. I think every parent should have their kids be a waiter, be a server at a restaurant, but also do either door-to-door sales or telemarketing sales. I think that builds so much character in a kid. Even if the kid's going to be an engineer, a doctor, or an attorney, it will give them so much confidence in themselves, and they'll figure out who they are, and the stories they start telling themselves will become powerful. And so had a great sales manager named Bill, and he was really into personal development. Now I was into personal development too, like Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar. But he took it one step further. It wasn't enough just to read the book. He said, you've got to verbalize and internalize how much you love and like yourself. So as you're driving to the sales territory that day, you look in the mirror and you tell yourself 1,000 times, I like myself. And so that morning when you wake up, I like myself, because you're going to get the door slammed in your face, and you need to hear it from yourself 1,000 times a day. I like you, Michael Butler. And I would stand there as I'm shaving in the morning, getting ready for my day. I like myself. I like myself. And then you would do this so much that it become a part of you as you're driving to the territory, and you're driving out there, and part of you is dreading it. Part of you is looking forward to the adrenaline rush. You're just saying over and over again, looking in the rearview mirror, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself, I like myself. And the next week he says, we're going to change it to I love myself, I love myself. And you know what? Every one of us, there were 12 salespeople in the field. We could track it. From the day we started these affirmations, these verbal affirmations of I like myself, and then when it switched to I love myself, our sales numbers went up. You could track the data. It was real data and really worked. So the 4 types of stories are your stories, other people's stories, fiction stories, and finally the stories you tell yourself. Because the stories you tell yourself are the stories that will change the world. You really can be whoever you want to be, wherever you want to be, have the life you want to have, if you just change the stories in your head about yourself. And this is the most healing. When I meet with you one-on-one for a free Zoom, you can jump on my calendar and I'll show you how. Jump on that calendar. We're going to identify what are the stories that you've told yourself that have held you back for years, Maybe it was a coach, maybe it was a teacher, a family member, a parent, or a pastor that told you you would never amount to anything, you would never be anybody, you would never succeed. Maybe it was a spouse that told you that. You chose to believe it, internalize it. We're going to change that story about yourself and unlock and unleash your impact, your influence, and your income. And we're going to come up with these 12 stories in this storytelling inventory. There are millions of stories, dozens that could impact you and the world, and 3 to 5 of these stories we're going to identify. These are the stories that you will give at your deathbed and that will be given at your eulogy and will be on your tombstone. Is these 3 to 5 things. This is what it comes down to, core life message. Now, many of you that are still here around the world, I would love to know what is your core life message. Hey, good to hear from you, Benjamin Brett. Let's check out on some of the comments. Emilio, Semper Fi, my friend, my Marine Corps friend. Emilio is watching. Dave Turner, Josh's Journey. Yes, you got to follow him. Wow, what an inspiring story here. Oh, Emilio did door-to-door back in the day. Since 12 back in Jersey. You got to be tough to do door-to-door in Jersey. Oh, my gosh. At least in Tennessee, they're kind of polite. They slam the door, but they politely slam the door. In New Jersey, they cuss you out as they're slamming the door. Good to see you, Debbie. So many people here sharing and saying hi from all over. Benjamin, how are your children's books coming? Thanks for the feedback on the audio. I'll give you guys a tour here in a little bit, but I'm just going to say there's this 13,000 7-Elevens in Thailand, and there's one right there across from my apartment. So it is 7:45 in Bangkok. There's 11 million people here. Well, what did you get most out of this webinar? And then I'm going to give you a chance to take it to the next level and really monetize this. Because in 1 hour from now, I am going to invite you, because I'll have the new webpage redirect will be up, and you can RSVP for Beyond Webinar. And I'm going to teach you the same time next week at 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, how to write your book in 1 hour. Many of you have struggled with writing your book for years. Friends and family have told you need to write a book. So I'm actually going to help you write your book in 1 hour at the same time. And the reason I wanted to give you the storytelling webinar first is because I think it's going to help you see. Because a lot of new authors will write their memoir and they think they're, okay, I'm ready to publish. But you got to realize that's fine, but memoirs are the slowest moving category of book. Now, memoirs are the slowest moving category of book, right down there with poetry. But if you really want to make an impact, so Pat says, my core story is to reveal the miracle the Lord gave me after a stroke that left me knowing nothing for 3 weeks to inspire and encourage others. That is awesome, Pat. I love that. That's a great purpose. That's a great core life message. So when it comes to memoirs, we're going to find the redemptive arc in that memoir that's going to have transformation effect. So you can still tell your story, but next week I'm going to show you how to find the redemptive transformational arc in the story to really impact and transform, to fill up your mastermind, to fill up your stage, to fill up your media interview calendar. Awesome. So glad to hear it, Benjamin. Glad you're working. I know it's a big time for you and the kids, and I know great things are ahead. And I really appreciate you staying in touch, brother. Really been thinking about you and praying for you a lot lately. And Debbie, you as well. So proud of you. Wow, you've done so much. So glad to have you from Tennessee. As I'm talking about Tennessee and the door-to-door sales around Nashville I did back when my kids were young. So you can go ahead and RSVP 1 hour from now. I'll have the landing page up. It'll be the Streamyard, back on Streamyard, and it's going to be how to write your book in 1 hour. And even if you've attended before, I have updated content, new and improved, because I always am making it better. And I would encourage you to jump back in next week, because you're also going to meet some amazing people as I break into my last mangosteen here. Oh, just look how delicious. How delicious and nutritious is that? What is your core life message? What is the story you're called to share with the world? And do you want more influence on social media? Well, some people look at social media as a broadcast channel to broadcast, and all they do is broadcast on buy my book, listen to my podcast, do this, go here, like this, leave me an Amazon review. If you're always selling and pitching, people are going to tune out, people are going to unsubscribe, and they're going to snooze you for 30 days. You know that, right? They're going to snooze you, and they're going to forget about you and never come back to you. So you want to make your content engaging, fun, value added, put the value at the front. Do you want to be a better storyteller? So I was pitching the webinar. We got a lot of people on this webinar from around the world, and I'll be sending out the replay soon before it gets too late for you there in the States. And then my day getting started here at 8 a.m. It's Friday. So I got a big day planned here in Bangkok. 90 degrees, by the way, every day, sunny and 90. And people are headed to work. I'll give you the tour here in a minute. But really blessed, very fortunate. Everyday situations in life, you walk into a pizzeria, that becomes a story. You tell the story, and then you tie the book into that, and then you ask for the donation link. So I've got a nonprofit. I've got a book publishing company. I've got online events I'm wanting to fill up. I'm wanting to get magazines into people's hands and books into people's hands. How do I do it all without sounding salesy? And Gary Vaynerchuk wrote a book a few years ago. I really loved it. It's called Jab, 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 Right Hook. Now, if you listen and follow Gary Vaynerchuk, he drops a lot of F-bombs. It's not family content, but he's really great marketing mind. And his whole marketing mind and the way he took his father's wine business from $500,000 to $5 million is by creating online content that was providing value education before you ask for the sale. And what you want to do is you want to be able to educate, industry news and facts, ask questions, provide value, and then ask for the sale. And you're not selling a $20,000 product with one social media post. You're leading people into a funnel where they're going to buy a $20 book. They're going to come into a free webinar. They're going to come into a coaching program. So next week, actually, I am going to present a publishing offer that is our special price publishing offer for somebody that wants to publish a book by Christmas or by March 1. So there's always a promotion going on. And so, but you notice I'm educating here. I'm not selling you anything here. What I am selling you is getting on next week's webinar, right? And so the other thing we're doing is we're building a community. We're building a community because I'm noticing my friends, and right now it's really hot politically because of the elections in the U.S. and Trump versus Kamala. My friends that are going live every day with political content on Rumble, they're getting millions of views. Dan Bongino is getting up to 20 million views on a single episode. People like Alex Jones are getting 200 million views on a single episode. So they're getting more influence, impact, and income than all the traditional mainstream media globally combined, the BBC, CNN, Fox News, ABC, NBC, CBS. I said it 20 years, people are the new media. And old media has died. People aren't watching traditional media. And if you want to have an influence in the future, if you want to impact, people in the future, I did pretty good without water for an entire hour, is create an online community. Because in the future, it's going to be people that have online communities and that monetize those online communities that really can create an impact and get things done. Hey, you'll love this. There is a shuttle going from my apartment every day, multiple times a day. It's going to come by. And this shuttle is in the blue one. Here he comes. That guy right there. And when I want to go to the mall and I want to go to the subway, I just jump on that. And in 2 minutes, I'm there. Or I could walk. It's only about a quarter mile, half a mile to the mall and the subway station. There's the 7-Eleven. And there's about 450 units here in this apartment complex. And so I don't want to get too far away from the signal because I'll lose it. What did you learn most today? What was impactful? What are you taking away? What are you sharing? And I would say go ahead and start sharing now. You know, one thing about content is it's so important to frequently and religiously, consistently put out content. And so that's what I'm doing with this webinar. And so from this webinar, I'll create maybe a dozen pieces of content where I'll take sound bites and push it out. I didn't even talk about my book, Finding the Speaker's Edge, for those that want to turn their part-time passion into a full-time speaking career, speaking on stage and speaking online. So that's Finding the Speaker's Edge. It's available everywhere. I just came back from the States where I sold my last copy, so you have to go buy it online because I don't really ship from Thailand. I let the distributor do that. My last mango steam. I'm not sure why the slides didn't show up, but actually I think what I'll do is I may repackage the replay in about a 20-minute version with the slides. So stick around. I'm going to go have a cup of coffee and a bite of eggs, and then I'll get that over to you soon. Friends, thank you for watching from around the world. I'm proud of you. Keep up the good work, and let's talk soon. God bless you. Never give up on your dreams, and never stop telling your story, because your story will change the world. Your story will impact the world, all the world. This is where we're going, all the world. Your people are there. You just got to find them. So start talking and never shut up, no matter who tells you to stop or tries to shut you down. This has been Michael D. Butler, and I want to say thanks for watching. Changing lives in New York and NASDAQ and beyond. Michael D. Butler, Global Book Publisher. We're ending human trafficking at 1040impact.org.
I don't celebrate birthdays.
I'm here in the heart of the 1040 window, Bangkok, Thailand. There's 70 million people in Thailand. Will you do something for me? I'm looking for prayer partners. I need you to pray for Christians in the 1040 window. The 1040 window is the greatest area of unreached people groups in the world. Not only that, these 3 billion people, they make an average of only $1 per day. Thank you for being a prayer partner in the 1040 window at 1040impact.org. It was a technical glitch on not being able to share the slides, so I might be able to share the slides quickly. Let me just check here. Sometimes when you travel internationally, some of your settings get jacked up. I'm following their instructions on doing that, which we'll figure that out. So I think I'm going to send you the abbreviated version here shortly. So stick around. Have a good day. And I'll just repost the replay link under this webinar so you can watch the slides wherever you watch it from, on whatever social media platform. Be watching for the replay in the next 2 hours underneath the post of this webinar.